It's 9 o'clock and we'll commence. Aloha, Makakilo. Good morning, everyone. This is the August 21, 2024 Land Use Commission meeting. This is an in-person meeting which is physically being held at the Filipino Community Center, Flores Ballroom at 94428 Moku'ola Street, Waipahu, Hawaii, 96797. This meeting is open to the public. Court reporting transcriptions are being done from this Zoom recording of this meeting. For all meeting participants, I'd like to stress the importance of speaking slowly, clearly, and directly into your microphone. And before speaking each time, please state your name and identify yourself for the record. So even though this is an in-person meeting, please be aware that all meeting participants are being recorded on the digital record of this Zoom meeting, and it will be posted to YouTube and it will be used for court reporting purposes. So your continued participation is your implied consent to be part of the public record. If you do not wish to be part of the public record, you should exit the meeting now. I also want to inform all participants and attendees that from time to time, we'll be taking breaks. We'll take a nominal 5-minute break every hour, and then we'll take a lunch break depending on where we stand in the meeting. That'll be around noontime. So my name is Dan Giovanni, and I have the pleasure to serve as the LUC chair. We currently have 9 seated commissioners. Along with me here today are Michael Yamani from Kauai, Commissioner Makakilo, Commissioner Brian Lee from Oʻahu, Commissioner Bruce Oʻahu from Maui, Commissioner Nancy Carr Smith from Kona, Big Island, and Commissioner Miles Miyasato also from Hawaii Island. Excused from today's meeting are Commissioner Kamakea Ohelo and Commissioner Ken Hayashida. So 7 of the 9 commissioners are here today. Also in attendance are the LUC Executive Officer, Daniel Oʻahu, LUC Chief Planner, Scott Derrickson, LUC Staff Planner, Martina Segura, and LUC Chief Clerk, Ariana Kwan. The LUC Attorney General is Miranda Steed. Again, court reporting transcriptions are being done from this Zoom recording. So our first order of business is the adoption of minutes from our meeting of August 8th, 2024.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Imani.
Mr. Chair, I will be abstaining from this vote as I was not present during this meeting. Thank you.
Understood. Ms. Kwan, has there been any written testimony submitted on this matter?
Not on the minutes, Chair.
Has anyone signed up to testify on this?
Not regarding the minutes, Chair.
Okay. Commissioners, are there any corrections or comments on the minutes? Chair would like to make a comment. I think the minutes accurately reflected the details of the meeting. Transcripts in my mind are accurate. But however, there's one paragraph in there, and I'd like to call attention to it. It accurately cited what occurred during the meeting. The paragraph I'm talking about, it says Commissioner Lee questioned Mr. Oʻahu and about not disclosing that he had applied for a job on Maui. It continues and it ends with the words "to these circumstances." My concern is that I thought this was out of place at this meeting. It was lacking decorum, it was unhelpful and unproductive, and it appeared to me to improperly or intentionally be aimed at embarrassing the executive officer. So I like to, it reflected my concern on the matter. So hopefully we can avoid such interactions as we go forward. So do I have a motion to adopt the minutes of August 8th, 2024? Thank you, Commissioner Kahele. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner thank you. All in favor of adoption of the minutes, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No, and it's noted that Commissioner Yamani abstained. The minutes are adopted. Thank you very much. The next agenda item is the tentative meeting schedule. Mr. Ornecker?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tomorrow, we will be holding a Zoom meeting for the SP 09403 Waimanalo Gulch Sanitary Landfill Adoption of Order. On September 4th, we will be holding a Zoom meeting to adopt the order for SP 73-147 Makakilo Quarry, the matter that we're hearing today. Hopefully we will be able to accomplish that on September 4th. On September 11th to September 13th, we are on the Big Island at the Westin Hapuna Beach Resort for the Hawaii Conference of Planning Officials. September 25th and 26th is currently open. On October 9th and 10th, on October 9th, we will be hearing excuse me, DR 24-77, the RK2 Partners declaratory ruling request. And on October 10th, we will be getting it'll be held by Zoom. We're getting an OPSD presentation. On October 23rd and 24th, we will be hearing SP 21-412, which is the Mahi Solar matter at a location to be determined. That is on Oʻahu. On November 6th, we will be on Maui for the A and B Properties, Inc. motion to amend. And on October 7th, we will be on Maui again for the Emmanuel Lutheran status report. Both of those meetings will be held at the Maui Arts and Cultural Center.
Is that October or November 7th?
November, excuse me. My bad. On November 20th, we will, at a location to be determined, we will be on Maui for SP 97-390, a motion to add and remove IAL designation. And we have a tentative meeting scheduled for the 21st. We may need that for an adoption of order. If we do so, that will be a Zoom meeting. December is currently open. That will take us through the end of the year.
Commissioners, any comments or questions on the tentative schedule? Commissioner Carr-Smith?
Chair, at the last meeting, I commented that on October 10th, I wouldn't be available, and I requested the Zoom option, which I think initiated this original thought of that, but my conflict no longer exists. So if it's an in-person option, I would prefer that.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. So you can still offer that by Zoom? Is that the intention? Just
That's up to the commission itself. We can do it either by Zoom. We can do a hybrid meeting. We can have an in-person location, and we can also, for commissioners who don't want to travel to Oʻahu, we can also do it by Zoom.
Katya, please state your full name.
Good morning, Katia Balaciano with the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. On behalf of my director, Mary Alice Evans, I know that she would prefer an in-person meeting.
It will definitely be an in-person meeting. We're just going to give some people the option to Zoom in if they can, but
Okay,
I'll be
thank you.
here. Yeah,
Great.
for sure.
Sure.
Commissioner Lee?
Earlier in the year, we were introduced to the development facilitator personnel. I'm not sure exactly what his title is. And it was discussed that we would be getting an update from him periodically, I think maybe quarterly or so. So I would ask that that be placed on a future upcoming agenda.
Could you clarify again who we're talking about for me?
Mr. Arnold Wong.
Oh, okay. So we we're requesting, commission is requesting put on the agenda, just a periodic update from Mr. Wong for the work that he's doing.
That is possible, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So I am absolutely unavailable September 25 and 26. It's currently showing as open, so keep it open, or don't book something in there if you have to. And also October 23 and 24, I'm not available. If there's some flexibility to move that earlier in that week, I am available if we move it to 21, 22. Is that possible?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we'll do a roll call and find out, rest of the commission's availability, but, I would point out that if that SP gets filed when we expect it to, we're under a 45-day time frame.
Yeah, I'm asking to move it forward up earlier 2 days in the
Yeah.
week. Instead of Wednesday, Thursday, do it Monday, Tuesday, and I could be here.
Okay, we will do a roll call and make a
But I
determination.
definitely can't make the September, so don't plug it in there. If you don't, I mean, Commissioner Yamani could step up for me, so I'm not at any time that he's willing, so. Any other?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I'm also
Commissioner.
not available on that September,
Well, you're also not available.
yeah,
so-
on that
so
24th, 25th date.
Chair and vice chair are not available in September, so no more tentative, please.
You guys just make my life so easy.
It's mutual, Ms. Kwan. Commissioners, anything further on schedule? Okay. So our next order of business is SP 73-147, Grace Pacific LLC. This was formerly Pacific Concrete and Rock Company Limited of Makakilo Quarry, Oʻahu. It's an application to amend the conditions of approval. Those conditions are to extend the life of the Makakilo Quarry resource extraction and processing operations by 15 years to the year 2047. Secondly, to reshape the area that's approved for resource extraction. Thirdly, to expand the operating hours of certain activities in the quarry to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And lastly, to operate a ready mix plant in the quarry pit. At this time, I'd like the parties to identify themselves, starting with the petitioner.
Morning, Chair, members. Cal Chase for the petitioner. With me is Jarrett Dempsey and Scott Komatsu.
Thank you. From the County of Hawaii.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Patricia Sandow, Deputy Corporation Counsel on behalf of the City and County of Honolulu Department of Planning and Permitting. And with me, I have Franz Cranes, Branch Chief of our Community Planning.
Thank you. And let me correct myself. It's the City and County of Honolulu. It's not the County of Hawaii. Thank you. OPSD, State.
Good morning, Allison Kato, Deputy Attorney General for the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. Also here with me is Katia Palaciano from OPSD. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I'd like to talk about the reimbursement policy. Mr. Chip Chase, have you reviewed HAR 1515-45.1 regarding reimbursement of hearing expenses?
Yes, Chair, and we accept.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to address whether or not we have any disclosures and or conflicts of interest. And let me note for the record that Commissioner Ken Hayashida has recused himself from today's meeting. He felt it was a conflict because he had participated previously at the county planning level. So in accordance with HRS 8414, commissioners are not allowed to take any official action affecting the business in which they are they or a member of their family has a financial interest. They must therefore recuse themselves from this matter if there is any benefit, monetary or otherwise, to themselves or members of their family. Also, in accordance with legal ethical standards, commissioners should disclose any relationship, business, social, or otherwise, that they may have with the petitioner or its representatives or any other parties to this proceeding that may give rise to an allegation of bias or impropriety. Commissioners, do you have any conflicts of interest or disclosures to make at this time relative to this matter? Seeing none, and let me also repeat, Commissioner Ishida has recused himself. So let me explain the procedure for today. First, I will recognize written public testimony that has been submitted in this matter. Next, I will call among members of the public who wish to provide oral testimony in this matter. After completion of the public testimony portion of the proceedings, the chair would like the petitioner to make their presentation. After the completion of the petitioner's presentation, we will receive any public comments from the City and County Department of Planning and Permitting, DPP, City and County Honolulu, or the State Planning, Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. The commissioners will also ask questions of the parties at the conclusion of each of their presentations. At the conclusion of the parties' testimony and commissioners' questions, the public will be given a second opportunity to provide testimony in the same manner that they had originally. Then the parties will be given an opportunity for closing arguments, and after that, the commission will conduct its public deliberations. Reference of the record. Please be informed that the relevant records and documents pertaining to this matter can be accessed for the review on the LUC website. I'm going to say this twice. The website is https://luc.hawaii.gov/SP73-147. The second time I'm saying it, https://luc.hawaii.gov/SP73-147. Public testimony. I will recognize written public testimony submitted in this matter. Ms. Kwan, has there been any written public testimony?
Yes, Mr. Chair. For the month of August, we received 13 written testimonies that have all been published to the website. However, this morning, one was removed or rescinded for Teamsters and allied workers. So there's 12 total.
They've all been posted. Thank you. Ms. Kwan, are there any members of the public that wish to testify on this matter?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have 4 signed up for oral testimony today. Are you ready for the first one?
Yes, let me state that I'm going to give each testifier 3 minutes. Please try to confine your remarks to that 3 minutes. And I'll give you, if you start to run over, I'll just give you a polite urging to summarize and complete. So who's the first witness?
First, we have Keone Dudley.
Mr. Dudley, will you please, or are you able to go to the microphone?
Aloha Chair Giovanni and Commission members.
1 second, please.
Can I ask you to put the mic closer to your, yeah, that way it gets you. Thank
Okay.
you.
So for each public testifier, when you come forward, I'd like you to state your name and the zip code in which you live, and then I will swear you in. So please state your name and your zip code.
My name is Dr. Keone Dudley. My zip code is 96707.
So Mr. Dudley, do you swear your testimony today will be the truth?
Yes,
Okay, please proceed. You have 3 minutes.
thank you. I am Dr. Keone Dudley. I am the second vice chair of the Makakilo Kapolei Honokai Neighborhood Board. I'm also the person who first suggested that the Grace-Pacific and future owners be required to create a Hawaiian carving on the Makakilo back wall, the Makakilo Quarry back wall, before closing the quarry. On the west side, we're just the dumping ground for this island. If people don't want something, it gets put out here. We got the city dump, not one dump, but two. We got the industrial park. We got the ugly quarry. We get two smelly sewage treatment plants. All of our high voltage lines are above ground. You don't see any of these things in Hawaii Kai or the eastern side of the island. We'd like something nice out here too. For decades, the operators of the quarry have carved away at that rock hill, Pu'u'o Makakilo. Until today, there is an ugly, straight up and down, sheer back wall of rock, hundreds of feet high and twice as wide, at the back of the quarry. That gross looking rock wall is seen by thousands of people on the west side every day. There is no way to avoid it. It's a huge, ugly scar on the flowing beauty of the surrounding mountains. Our people want to see that unsightly wall beautified. We want to see that back wall transformed into some kind of carving large enough to be seen from Kamakana Ali'i that will beautifully depict a person or persons or event that is special in Native Hawaiian culture and tradition. A breathtaking carving that our people can enjoy, that tourists can come to see, and something that for thousands of years will tell ever new waves of very different settlers about the original people who discovered and settled these islands. Thus, the neighborhood board and I are asking the LUC as a formal condition of approval of the extension of the quarry life. 1, to require Grace Pacific and its new owner, non-incorporated, and all future owners of the quarry to work with the neighborhood board and the chairpersons of the various Hawaiian homesteads in Kapolei to decide what person or persons or event will be depicted in the carving and its size and outlook, the overall look of it. We ask you to, number 2, to require the owners to begin the carving by July 1st, 2027. Number 3, we ask the LUC to require the owners to give annual updates on the progress of the project to the Land Use Commission, to the full Makakilo Kapolei Honokai Neighborhood Board, and the Kapolei Hawaiian Homestead Association chairpersons each year in January to give us a report. And 4, we ask you to require the owners to finish the carving project by 2047 or by the closing of the quarry, whichever comes earlier. Again, the Land Use Commission is being asked to put all of the above into a formal requirement as a condition of approval of the request to extend the life of the quarry. This meeting today is so terribly important because it is truly the one chance in a lifetime to bring a marvelous thing of beauty to Hawaii. If you don't vote in support today, there will never be another chance to require such a gift for our people and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dudley. Please stand by for questions. Petitioner, questions for this witness?
Township Chase, no questions, Chair.
Thank you. City and County of Honolulu?
And no questions from the city.
Yeah, will you state your name, please, when you speak?
Patricia Sandow, no questions from the city.
Thank you. OPSD?
Allison Cotton, no questions. Thank you.
Okay, commissioners? Mr. Dudley, I just want quick, has this, your proposal been put forth to the petitioner?
I didn't hear that, sir.
Has your suggested condition been put forth privately to the petitioner?
Have we've talked about it with them at a neighborhood board meeting. This was about a year and a half ago, maybe a little longer since then. We haven't had any real discussions about it. No,
Okay, but this is not the first time that they've heard about it.
no, no.
Okay, thank you very much. Who's next, witness, please?
Next, we have Ana Tua Sosopo.
Ms. Kwan, is something going on we should know?
They're working on it.
Thank you. Thank you. So would you please state your name and your zip code, and then I'll swear you in.
My name is Ana Tua Sosopo. My zip code is 96706.
Mr. Sopo, you swear your testimony today will be the truth?
Yes.
So please proceed. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. My name is Ana Tua Sosopo. I'm the district representative of Operating Engineers Local 3. I'm a trustee. I'm a constitutional officer of our 4 states, Utah, Nevada, California, and Hawaii. I'm also the president of the Alliance of the four basic crafts. I'm here in support of Grace Pacific to extend their permit up in the quarry. You know, Grace Pacific has been good to our community. They've always been giving back, you know, a lot of stuff that Grace has done with their golf tournaments, with their movie nights that they have given back. Grace Pacific, we have over 200 members of our union members that works in the quarry. That's all our union members that, you know, work hard up there. We have Hawaii HCND that's up there too. So that's all union work for us, our people here in Hawaii. You know, I'm here in support for Grace Pacific. They have done a lot for our members. You know, these are union workers. You talk about the cost of living in Hawaii. We just had an agreement with these guys for a 5-year agreement. They've been taking care of our members. You know, you guys got to remember, our union members are the backbone of our economy here in Hawaii. We're the people that pays our taxes. You know, our members here in Hawaii, you know, we always talk about people leaving Hawaii. If you close this plant down, our people here in Hawaii will leave Hawaii because they cannot afford to live here in Hawaii. So I'm here in support of Grace Pacific to make sure that they continue to have work for our future. They talk about our future. That is our future. I want my kids to live here in Hawaii and my grandchildren to live here in Hawaii. And I'm thankful for Grace Pacific, all our union members to live here in Hawaii. So I hope you guys understand, please to support this extension for Grace Pacific. And with that, if you guys have any questions, I'll be able to answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And also, you know, the planning commission already passed it, so I just want to let you guys.
Thank you. So stand by for questions. So, Mr. Chip Chase?
Cal Chip Chase, no questions, Chair.
Thank you.
Patricia Sundown, no questions.
Thank you.
Allison Cotta, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners? Mr. Oʻahu?
Aloha Mr. Tua Sosopo. I heard you mention 4 basic crafts.
Yes.
Who are the 4 basic crafts?
4 basic crafts are the operating engineers, the carpenters, the laborers, and the masons, and the bricklayers. Bricklayers and the masons are the same, so it was like, so I'm the president of that.
My second question is, how much members would the amount to? Give or
Total?
take, Total.
I think we'll have at least over 20,000, I think. And
Thank you.
Commissioner Lee?
Aloha, Mr. Tuiaso Sopo. I guess I should declare that you and I were classmates for 2 years in high school. But I wasn't on the football team like you. Can you give us an idea how much hourly that members make so that they can live in Hawaii? Just typical range for your members.
I don't have it, with me, but, very specific, contribution gives $1 million every month. Just as June, and from January to June, we have a report. They give us over $6 million of revenue, for our members in contribution. We talk about the West Side, yeah. I look at our members putting back into this community, putting back into Kamakana. I see, the only way we can survive here in Hawaii is our people getting good pay. These guys pay a good pay for our members. And for me, the pride and the joy for me is to see the West Side, Makana and all these people, that our families are about to get ahead, and, there's only 3 quarries, I think, left. The Halava one, I think, is going to expire. We have the Kapa'a one right now. And Grace Pacific, without them, our asphalt, our paving companies are not, they supply all the aggregates that goes out to the community, even with the city and county jobs. These guys, Grace Pacific, does a lot for the community. So that's why I say it's a big thing for us to have this. It's going to be a detrimental if we don't pass this, because our families cannot survive. And for us, as a union, we always believe that a family should have one job and make sure that they stay home and take care of their family. Hawaii, everybody's working 2, 3 jobs and can't stay home to take care of their family. With Grace Pacific, I am grateful for, we just, like I told you guys, we just had a 5-year agreement with these guys. They're taking care of our members, and, they're taking care. And like I always say, we're the middle class. We pay the taxes, and we're the backbone of this economy. So with that, if you guys do support Grace Pacific with this, you're supporting all the people on the West Side. 80% of our members from operating engineers live on this side of the island. So with that, yeah. Any more other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. And thanks for your answer. Commissioners, anything further? Thank you very much. You're excused.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kwan, who's next?
Next we have Peter Irate. Oh, I think, Scott, do you want to wipe the mic?
Tea time. Oh.
Mr. Ariati, please state your name and zip code.
My name is Peter Iriarte, and my zip code is 96782.
Thank you. Do you swear the testimony today will be the truth?
Yes.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Peter T. Iriarte. I am the Business Manager, Financial Secretary, Treasurer for the Masons Union Local 630. We represent the cement finishers and the plasters in the state of Hawaii. We are here today, I'm here today to show support for Grace Pacific in the expansion of this quarry. Basically, without these aggregates, we definitely participate in construction, and without these aggregates that are coming out of there, we won't be able to get jobs. So jobs is very important for us here. And, I don't want to repeat what Anna just said, except that I'm part of that alliance. I'm one of the basic craft in the Construction Alliance, Hawaii Construction Alliance group, which is the basic craft. And basically, our job out there is to finish concrete, do curb and gutters on the side of the road that are being paved by Grace Pacific. Grace Pacific's been there for many years. They're an icon to the island, and so is our union, the Masons Local 630. So we are definitely in support of this expansion with Grace Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So please stand by for questions. Mr. Chipchase?
Thank you, Chair. Cal Chip Chase, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. City and County?
Patricia Sandow, no questions.
Thank you. Ms.
Allison
Cotton?
Cato, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last, we have Gino Soquina.
Good morning, Gino. Mr. Sokina, could you please state your name and your zip code?
Gino Sequena, 96707.
And your testimony today will be the truth?
I do.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Gino Sequena, a 47-year resident of Makakilo and Executive Director of the Hawaii Building and Construction Trades Council, which represents 18 of the 19 construction trade unions here in Hawaii. I'm here in support of Grace Pacific's application to extend the quarry. Grace Pacific's quarry is one of three major quarries here on the island and is very vital to our construction industry. And as I said, representing 18 construction trade unions, construction is vital. The quarry will be vital to our construction industry and our over 30,000 members, which we represent. So I think that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stand by for some questions. Petitioner?
Cal Chip Chase, no questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. City and County, Honolulu?
Patricia Sandow, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. State?
Allison Cato, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners? Sure.
Good morning,
Commissioner
Mr.
Nakasone.
Sequena.
Good morning,
Did
Commissioner.
you state that you are a resident of Makakilo
Correct.
in the vicinity of this quarry up above?
Well, the quarry is in the front part, but the Makakilo, there's a valley that comes up in Makakilo Drive. Yeah.
Okay.
On opposite side.
Would you say that there's any impact to your home as far as noise or dust?
No.
Okay.
Where the well, from as a Makakilo resident, I can't speak for the residents of Kapolei, but we can't see the quarry because the backside of the mountain is what I would see from my house.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioners? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other testifiers?
That was the last one, Chair.
Okay, so just let me remind all the public that you will be given a second opportunity to testify after hearing from all the parties in their remarks. So before we deliberate on a decision. So that wasn't your only chance. Okay, now we now have presentations by the parties, starting with the petitioner. So Mr. Cal Chip Chase, would you please tell me an idea about how long you would need for your presentation?
Yes, Chair. Cal Chip Chase. I have about a 20-minute presentation.
And will the gentlemen that are with you today be any part of that presentation or be available to answer questions?
They will not be part of the presentation. They will be available to answer questions depending on the question asked.
Why don't we swear them in now and then it'll all go smoother later.
Very good, Chair.
Can I remind everyone to speak closer to the microphone? Thank you.
You got it, Ms. Kwan. Yes, Chair. So I would suggest then we swear in Scott Komatsu, because if anyone is called upon to answer questions, he's the most likely candidate. We do have some of the substantive experts who worked on the reports that are before you in the room as well. I wouldn't suggest we take the time to swear them in now because I think it's unlikely they'll be needed, but if they are needed, they are available.
So let's swear in Mr. Komatsu and that'll be good for now.
Very good.
Mr. Komatsu, will you please state your name and zip code for the record? And then I'll swear you in.
Scott,
Need to turn it on.
Scott, you gotta push the button.
Got it. Sorry.
No worries.
My name is Scott Komatsu and my zip code is 96744.
Thank you. Do you swear the testimony you may give today will be the truth?
Yes, it will be.
Thank you. Mr. Chip Chase, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners, as the chair explained at the beginning of this agenda item, this is a petition to amend an existing special use permit, and it's to amend it in very limited ways. One is to extend the operation, period, by another 15 years. Another is to allow certain specific activities within the quarry pit to continue beyond the current authorized hours. Another is to reshape the pit to reach high quality aggregates so that we can continue to supply material to the city and county of Honolulu, sometimes to the broader state of Hawaii and other islands, and keep those trades doing what those trades do. The last is to confirm that we are authorized to operate a ready mix concrete plant in the quarry pit. The quarry began operating in 1973, and it is a source of A and B grade aggregate used to make concrete, asphalt, and fill. The quarry supplies about 1 million tons of aggregate every year, and all of that output stays in Hawaii. Millions of tons of aggregate are needed every year to meet our construction and paving demands. And even with Makakilo and the 2 other quarries, we still have to import some material from the mainland United States and from Canada. So without this quarry, Hawaii and Oʻahu in particular would be in a very negative supply state for our aggregate needs. The quarry is in a central location, which reduces the need for transportation for the workers, as we've heard, but also for the trucks, particularly for operations and work on the west side. The local source of stone benefits the economy in numerous ways, not only through the employment of good jobs and good wages, but by keeping costs lower for the city and county of Honolulu, for the state of Hawaii, and for private operators than if we had to import this much material from the mainland and from Canada. The parcels, and we put the map up on the screen outlining them, are parcels 82 and 74. That is where the current operations exist. That's the excavation area, the berms, the buffer areas, the processing areas. Parcel 4, which you see down below, the smaller parcel, is a former site of some of the operations. It is no longer an operational site. We do not seek to use it as an operational site in this petition to amend. It is maintained instead as open space. All of these parcels are in the state agricultural district. In day-to-day operations, rock is mined and then processed. In addition to the mining and the processing of rock, about 100,000 tons of material from concrete and asphalt is recycled each year in the operations. That recycling reduces waste to the landfills, saves energy and carbon emissions, and allows us to extend the useful life of the quarry by reusing material where possible. In the petition to amend, we seek the 15-year extension to the year 2047 because that is our best estimate of the remaining high-quality A and B rock in the area. That would allow us to reach seams that haven't been tapped and to reshape the quarry is our second request to achieve greater efficiency and better access to that material. The modification of the operating hours is to allow a 24-hour asphalt and concrete production, sales in the pit of the quarry, receipt of recycling materials, and general maintenance. We do not seek to extend the operating hours for the mining or crushing activities that are currently authorized under the permit. We also seek, lastly, the approval of the ready-mix concrete plant in the quarry pit. That operation has been in place, and there's some question under the permit whether it was allowed. We seek to clarify that to ensure that there's no question that the operation continues to be allowed in the quarry pit. As I mentioned, for the extension, moving us out another 15 years gives us access to more than 27 million tons of aggregate in the combined existing and expansion area. Together, this material will keep Grace Pacific, keep the quarry in operation through 2047 is our best estimate today. We put up on the screen an image showing the adjustment of the approved mining areas. The expansion is about 15 acres. To compensate for the expansion, that reshaping of the quarry area, we've reduced the excavation and berming areas by approximately the same amount. So there's no net increase in the active operation areas of the quarry. You can see that more clearly in the image we put on the screen as Exhibit G3 of the application. The red area is the proposed new delineation of the quarry pit expansion area. And you can see in the blue, both the hash marked and the straight colored blue, the buffer areas around the quarry pit. Exhibit I, which is coming up on the screen now, is the closure grading plan that would show the final closure grades. It's a little slow to load, I think. I will move on and maybe we'll come back to the closure grading plan. The expansion of the hours of operation, we put up on the table the hours that would be unchanged and the hours that would move. As I mentioned, sales, maintenance, receipt of recycling materials, the operation of the hot mix asphalt plant, and the operation of the ready mix concrete plant. We would ask that the commission allow those to operate without restriction as to time. That's important in part because of the ability or the need to supply material 24 hours a day. As we put up on the screen, much of the paving and other work takes place overnight. Without the ability to supply those materials overnight to meet the construction need, Grace needs to operate a second plant that adds to cost substantially. It also adds to trucks and traffic on the road and increases operational difficulties not only for Grace, but for the folks who are receiving and using the asphalt and the concrete. We recognize at Grace that it's not enough to operate, to supply a necessary product, which we do. It's not even enough to employ good workers at good wages, which we do. We also have to be a good neighbor. And the process for this application has been ongoing for several years, beginning with extensive consultation, community meetings at the neighborhood board, individual outreach to homeowners, both directly through mail and in conversation and other meetings, in addition to the hearings before the Planning Commission. The application itself was the subject of many rigorous studies covering dust, noise, vibration, traffic, biological resources, view planes, lighting, cultural resources and practices, archaeological impacts, and socioeconomic effects. All of those issues were studied and reported on in the material attached to the application that is part of the record before the commission. As I mentioned, several of those experts not only attended the Planning Commission and were available for questions there, they've been able to attend this meeting as well if this commission has substantive questions that either I or Scott can't answer for you. As the testifiers noted, the Planning Commission did recommend approval. The commission operated under the same standard that this commission operates under Chapter 205-6. The same 5 guidelines apply, that the proposed special permit use not be contrary to the objectives sought to be accomplished by the state land use law, that the desired use would not adversely affect surrounding property, that the proposed use would not unreasonably burden public infrastructure and agencies, that unusual conditions and trends have arisen since the boundaries were set, and that the land upon which the use is sought is unsuited for uses within the agricultural district. The Planning Commission found on each of those items, the petitioner had met its burden of production and its burden of persuasion and cited to specific evidence in the record. So if we look at the first guideline, the area of the current operation and the proposed expansion do not exhibit a high utility for agriculture. In addition to the absence of available water for that use, there is also the presence of E-rated soils and prior disturbance, not only from the quarry, but from a planned golf course operation that initiated work some years ago and did not complete it. And so the area is not suited for, or would not be contrary to, the purposes of the district. The second guideline, that the use will not affect surrounding property. The Planning Commission specifically found that if the mitigation measures that we proposed and that were implemented through the conditions are continued for the life of the operation, that there will not be an adverse effect on the surrounding property. With respect to the third guideline, which looks at burden on agencies and infrastructure, the Planning Commission also concluded that there would be no impact to those agencies or to the infrastructure. I'll note with respect to traffic, we expect that the traffic will be substantially mitigated by closing the separate plant that is necessary for overnight operations as one example of an effort to reduce the impact that the quarry may have. With respect to the unusual conditions or trends that have arisen since the boundaries were established, as I noted, the quarry has been in operation since 1973. That long history operating at the same site, supplying a necessary material, is certainly consistent with the purpose of a special use permit to authorize reasonable and unusual uses within the agricultural district. And lastly, that the land upon which the proposed use is sought is not suited for the districted land, the agricultural land, as I noted, among other reasons, the soil quality for the pit and the expansion area are both at the lowest possible soil quality rating. The permit, both as it exists and as proposed to be amended, comes with a series of conditions that are designed to ensure that it operates within those 5 guidelines that we mentioned, in particular, having no effect on the surrounding community. And so the conditions on the 2007 permit that this commission approved will be carried forward as modified. There will be a new site plan, a revised closure grading plan. We'll continue to report annually to both the Planning Commission, or to DPP, Department of Planning and Permitting, as well as to the LUC. And then there are a series of conditions that we've proposed to be revised and the Planning Commission accepted that are consistent with the amendments that we've sought in the application. Those conditions include 5 new conditions, one of which is a nighttime outdoor lighting plan to ensure that nighttime operations don't adversely affect the surrounding community through illumination. One is operational restrictions related to tree trimming to ensure that we do not impact the Oʻahu. One is a traffic circulation plan for the quarry and its operations, and the use of white noise reversing alarms to ensure that there is no nighttime noise disturbance. We looked significantly, substantially at the potential to impact archaeological and cultural resources, worked with SHPD through a state certified archaeologist. As one of our conditions, the AIS must be accepted by SHPD before quarrying operations can continue or move into the expansion area. And of course, would require compliance with all laws related to historic properties and burials, if any happen to be or were inadvertently identified in the expansion area. We've agreed with all of these conditions. It was a substantial collaboration between Grace Pacific, the Department of Planning and Permitting, and the Planning Commission to reach appropriate conditions for the requested modification of the application. In reviewing the staff, LUC staff memo to the Planning Commission, I note that the staff also noted that DPP and the Planning Commission have recommended approval of the project. I reviewed the OPSD recommendation, which also recommends approval of the application, the amendment of the permit. OPSD, the Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, has suggested certain revisions to Condition 2. I'd like to spend a little bit of time on those proposed revised conditions. I put them up on the screen and I couldn't read them from where I sit. I don't know if you can read them from where you sit. If you have them available, it might, on your screens, it might be easier. I know it looks a little messy, the presentation of the condition. We're trying to capture the original condition, our proposed amendment to the conditions, OPSD's proposed amendments to the condition, and then highlight what we can accept and we agree to, and what we would respectfully ask the commission not adopt in OPSD's proposed change. So, if I begin with the first series of changes, OPSD and the applicant are in agreement as to all changes shown in this condition, up through the word displaying slopes. So if you look at the sentence that begins, the revised grading plan shall provide cross sections of the pit displaying slopes. We are in agreement as to those changes. OPSD would like to make two changes substantively in the remaining portion of that provision. The first is that no slopes can be greater than 75%. Along with that, no benching of the slopes would be allowed. The second is OPSD would like to expand or keep the current size of the proposed Kunia berm. If we look back at the slide showing the revised plan, and we will in a moment, the Kunia berm was reduced in size as part of a reduction in the land altering activities as part of the quarry, so that the total area brought in or reshaped and the total area removed equal roughly 15.6 acres. OPSD proposes to keep the original larger grading berm. If I start with that requested change, we put up on the screen a figure showing the difference between the berm that we propose under our amended final closure grading plan and the current larger berm that OPSD has asked to retain. We looked at the difference through our consulting engineers, Bowers and Kubota, looked at the volume difference, the volumetric difference between the berm that we've proposed and the berm that OPSD would like us to retain. The difference is significant, roughly 500,000 cubic yards of material. That material has to come from somewhere, and that material has to be placed, designed, placed, sited, graded. We've conservatively estimated that additional cost at roughly $3.5 million. That estimated cost assumes that most of the material can be obtained on site. It also assumes that there are no complications with the site design, compaction, or placement of that material. If the material had to be obtained off-site, or if there are any complications with any of those issues, we estimate that the cost for the expansion area that OPSD has recommended would exceed $5 million. Our visual study, which I put the relevant image up on the screen where you can see the view of where that berm area would be, took into account our reduced or narrowed berm. And as you can see, even with the reduced or narrowed berm, there's no anticipated visual or other impact from the quarry. Remember, this is at closure, and so we're looking principally at a visual impact. There is no anticipated visual impact because the berm height is unchanged. It is only the berm width that has been reduced. And so it continues to provide the same screen from the quarry that is currently required in the permit. But because the area of the operations have been adjusted, there's no need for it to be as wide as originally designed and proposed. And so we respectfully submit that retaining the reduced berm area is appropriate. The second change that I mentioned that OPSD has requested relates to the slopes and the benching. I said we'd come back to our closure grading plan. I was hoping it would load for me the second time. It hasn't. It's Exhibit I to the application. Maybe I'll talk long enough that it pops up. The revised grading plan creates or contemplates benches on the quarry wall as you move up in elevation. We worked with the consulting engineers at Bowers and Kubota to come up with that design for several reasons. One, since the last amendment in 2007, drainage and runoff have become more pronounced or known issues that need to be addressed. The benching, as opposed to a smooth quarry wall, allows water to collect on the benches rather than pooling entirely on the quarry floor. It also reduces erosion because instead of a straight quarry face, you have these intermittent benches that are able to retain and collect any material that may slough off or may fall, particularly during high weather events or high rain events. The related component of that is that the overall slope from pit to ceiling is about a grade of about 58%, so a lower overall grade, even though individual slopes between benches may exceed 75%. So you may have some slopes that are greater than 75%, but your overall grade is substantially less than 75%. Our engineers estimated at about 58%. That has the added benefit of being more stable than a straight slope with a 75% maximum grade. So with our proposed revised grading plan, we've improved stability, reduced the impact from runoff, improved operational efficiency because we can access better quality aggregate through the use of those benches and other means, while not sacrificing any of the concerns that OPSD expressed, which were principally in 2007, the reason for the condition, related to visual impacts. Because of the distance, because of our proposed closure plan, because of the berm that I mentioned, we don't anticipate any impacts from a visual impact from the benching of the quarry wall. Instead, we obtain all of those good operational and closure benefits through that benching and through the slope structure. The last part of that, it never came up. I do have a hard copy if anybody would like to look in detail, perhaps on a recess. The last part of that is what the vegetation would look like around that berm area that I mentioned at the beginning to ensure that the area is restored or retains a natural look. That is a recent aerial image or satellite image of the area where the berm will be. And as you can see, it's substantially naturally revegetating. So it's effectively a permascape. The natural vegetation that would occur there is occurring there and would continue to occur there. And so if we consider this photograph with the visual impact study that I referenced, we don't anticipate any changes or impact from the visual impacts at closure with our revised grading and berm plan. We took an opportunity to review the community concerns. And I'll pause here, Chair. I know I'm a little longer than 20 minutes. If you'd like to take a break now, I certainly can before I address the community questions.
Thank you. I would like to take a break. It's 10:05. We'll come back at 10:15.
Very good.
Back on the record, it's 10:17. Mr. Chip Chase, would you please continue?
Cal Chip Chase, will do, Chair. Where I'd left off, Commissioners, is with respect to community questions. And as I noted earlier in the presentation, just for this application, there were 3 neighborhood board meetings, as well as the Planning Commission proceedings. In addition to those more formal outreaches, letters went out to members of the community. Grace Pacific also, not even in connection with this application, but also maintains a hotline where neighbors or any concerned individuals can report problems, issues, whatever they'd like to Grace Pacific. That's by phone, and it's also by email, and Grace Pacific keeps a record of those outreaches. We also had an opportunity to review both in those public forums and in the public testimony here, including the oral testimony today, questions that members of the community have raised with respect to the application and continued operations. And one of those, as you heard from Dr. Dudley today, relates to the closure of the quarry and how it will look when it is closed. Dr. Dudley was instrumental in advancing a resolution at the neighborhood board to require the applicant to require Grace to work with selected members of the neighborhood board at closure to design and implement a carving. An example of the carving I think that's been given is a Mount Rushmore-like carving on the back of the quarry, on one of the quarry walls. As the chair asked Mr. Dudley, we have had an opportunity to talk to him about that, and we have heard the idea presented. With respect, it's not an idea that we would accept or ask you to implement. From a technical standpoint, the rock that is on that face is a basalt rock. Most of it is a B-grade rock that would not be suitable for carving. In other words, it wouldn't be effective. You couldn't create a Rushmore-like carving from the type of rock that is available on that face. We also looked at it from a distance perspective. It's so far from any public vantage point that it really wouldn't be anything that would be enjoyed or respected or appreciated by the public. From a process standpoint, we're looking at closure if the commission approves our application in 2047, so 23 years from now. The members of the neighborhood board that are on today and would be appointed potentially to this committee will not be the members that are serving in 23 years on the committee, and it seems not appropriate to bind future committees, future neighborhood boards with the decisions that members might want to make today. Also, from a standpoint, this is not merely a neighborhood board issue. This is an issue, or the closure of the quarry is something that concerns City and County of Honolulu, concerns this Land Use Commission. It strikes me as the function of this Land Use Commission in the City and County of Honolulu to implement closure grading requirements for the benefit of all citizens, not for one neighborhood area. And consistently, and as you see in the application today, this commission and the Honolulu Planning Commission have recommended grading closure conditions that look to conceal and beautify the quarry rather than to transform it into a monument of some sort. And so, you know, for those reasons, and we put just for a reminder, an image from our visual study on the screen, so you can see the distances and some of the rock type, the red rock type that we're talking about that would need to be carved up. Again, we don't believe that it would be effective, that it could be done, and certainly from a process point, we have concerns about that requirement. Noise is always a question when it comes to the operation of a quarry. We respect that. As I mentioned, with respect to our request to expand operations or certain operations at night, we've implemented even a traffic circulation plan with white noise reverse mechanisms to address that. But as the Planning Commission found, based on the noise study that we conducted, where is our activities audible from? What can you hear when you leave the quarry pit? The activities are not audible, generally speaking, from the quarry. There is no material noise impact associated with these operations, and there won't be any increased noise impact from the requested expansion of the realignment of the quarry area or from the proposed expansion of the operating hours. Safety is always a question, not only for the community, but for our workforce, for the folks who are down there doing the mining, doing the crushing, doing the processing of materials. As the Planning Commission found at finding 85, there have been no reported rockfall events associated with vibrations from drilling, blasting, or other operations that have affected any surrounding area. We are subject to the State Department of Health regulations regarding air quality, and we are subject to a covered source permit and to regular stack tests to ensure that all parts of our emissions from those portions of the plant remain within state and federal requirements. Vibrations are also always a question when you're dealing with quarry operations. Rock does need to be blasted in a controlled manner through placed charges and then collected. And so we're very sensitive to the concern over blasting and any risk that could be posed from those vibrations. And so we operate under guidelines related to quarry operations and blasting. We operate well below the operational thresholds or ceilings, I should say, for those operations. In addition, we conducted a fresh vibration study, a blasting study, to ensure that existing operations and proposed operations remained well within available guidelines. And so as the Planning Commission found, there's no risk of damage to property as long as we continue to operate within those guidelines. Dust is probably the other question that we get most frequently, and you can certainly see why from a quarry operation. I think it would be safe to say Grace Pacific is obsessed with dust. The trucks that they operate to control dust are robust, and they are constantly wetting down the area to ensure that there is no fugitive dust that would escape the quarry. In addition to that, we did a dust evaluation report to see how our operations were being conducted, whether we were operating within the standards that we think, you know, that the standards that we put on ourselves to make sure that we control dust, as well as with our expanded operations. And I'm pleased to report that the study concluded that there should be no impact from dust as long as the mitigation measures that we employ and have proposed remain in place. And so the Planning Commission reached that same finding. A question that is somewhat new to us in the operation of the quarry, but has certainly become more prominent after the experience in West Maui last year, is emergency access. And we are in active talks with the city and county of Honolulu and other landowners to provide access in the event of an emergency. We don't own all of the land that would be needed to access. It'll be a multi-party agreement if one is ultimately reached, and will certainly require substantial involvement from the city in order to achieve the best location and other parameters for an emergency access road. But that is a commitment that I've been authorized to make to you today, that we are in active discussions with the city and the other landowners on emergency access, and that those discussions will continue. Our every expectation is that we will be able to reach an agreement on an emergency access route. And so I end where I began, by thanking the commission for its time to review the application, to listen to the public testimony, to hear my presentation, and we make ourselves available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caltip-Chase. City and county, any questions for the petitioner?
Patricia Sendao. I do have one question for petitioner. This is regarding the proposed changes to condition 2 submitted by OPSD. I'm not sure if I heard your position regarding, sorry. The last sentence reads, the revised site plan shall be established from the approved revised final grading plan. And we had a question sort of about the timing, if that was to be adopted. Currently it reads that the grading plan is to be done within 1 year and the site plan within 6 months. And so we had a question if there was an issue regarding the timing with that proposal. If the site plan is to be established from the grading plan, but the grading plan is to be done within a year. And also I wasn't sure if you had a position on that proposal as well.
I appreciate that. So we viewed that additional sentence as unnecessary because the other portion of OPSD's proposed revision would require a revised plan. In other words, a grading plan different than what we've submitted. And since we have already, we would ask that the commission not require a revised plan in line with OPSD's comments. So we viewed that last sentence as unnecessary. If maybe the simplest way to explain that too is if we look back at the Planning Commission's proposed condition, condition 2, we're entirely in agreement with that condition. There's one typo in it. It references a visual study from 4 points. It should be 5. We agree with OPSD's correction on that. And so that would be an easy way to amend that condition, is just to put 5 in there instead of 4. OPSD, in the first part of its proposed conditions or proposed revision that I said we agreed to, specified those locations. In other words, took the 5 and then broke it out into the individual areas. That's okay too. We're happy to specify those vantage points if the commission would require, but we believe that after that, the rest of it is unnecessary, which makes that last sentence not objectionable, just unnecessary.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. Ms. Kato, do you have any questions on the presentation?
Allison Kato, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Chip-Chase.
You're welcome, Chair.
Okay, we'll have a presentation from City and County.
Patricia Sendao on behalf of the city and county. We have no further presentation to provide other than that we recommend that the LUC adopt the findings and fact, conclusions of law and decision in order dated May 29th, 2024, submitted by the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the county, Mr. Chip-Chase?
Cal Chip-Chase, no questions, Chair.
Ms. Kato, any questions?
Allison Kato, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Thank you. OPSD.
Thank you. Allison Kato. OPSD recommends approval of the modification of the 4 requests by petitioner. The first request is to extend the life of the quarry by 15 years to 2047. Because Makakilo Quarry provides a local source of rock aggregate, concrete, asphalt, and recycling services necessary to support construction activities in West Oʻahu. OPSD finds this to be desirable to the state. Petitioner estimates estimates that the exhaustion of aggregate in the existing and expanded excavation area will be about 2047. Because of this and because of petitioner's satisfactory compliance with permit conditions and promises made in 2008, OPSD agrees that the extension to 2047 is reasonable. The third and fourth requests involve processing facilities in the upper quarry. Currently, the aggregate has to be transported off-site for processing due to the time-sensitive nature of the process for concrete and asphalt, and due to the limitations of the special permit on operating hours. So the ability to operate the concrete and asphalt plants in the quarry pit 24 hours a day will negate the need to transport off-site, leading to both reduction in truck traffic on the H1 freeway and to cost savings to both the city and the state, particularly for road work done outside of the current permitted operating hours. OPSD believes that these changes would be beneficial to the state and that potential impacts have been addressed as discussed by the petitioner. With respect to the second request to reshape the area approved for resource extraction, OPSD supports that request as well, as it will open up a large amount of high quality aggregate. As stated in our written response, OPSD does have concerns regarding the potential impact this change may have involving the final closure grading plans and renaturalization commitments that were made previously. And I'm going to turn it over to Katia Palaciano from OPSD to discuss this in further detail.
Hello.
Ms. Valenciano, have I sworn you in yet today?
No, not yet.
Okay, please state your name and affiliation, and then I'll swear you.
Katia Palaciano, Office of Planning and Sustainable Development.
Ms. Valenciano, would your testimony today be the truth?
Yes, it will.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you. We wanted to speak to revised condition number 2, and Mr. Chipchase had shown the proposed language on the screen. We understand the importance of the quarry, and we've heard people today, members of the public, speak about the aesthetics of what it will look like upon closure. And we understand that those same conversations had taken place in 2008. In 2008, there was a finding number 40 that spoke to screening berm of up to 40 feet at finished grade and extending from the quarry pit access road to an elevation of 725 feet along the northern ridge, a smaller berm between the quarry pit and H1 freeway, naturalization of grades of the former golf course driving range located in the upper valley to replicate conditions that existed prior to the mass grading for the golf course. Item 40 went on to say, post-quarry operations also include the incorporation of final landforms that will have slopes no greater than 75% to promote long-term soil retention and landscaping. Under the plan, there are no vertical cuts, horizontal benches, or exposed rocks. So we wish to go back to that 2008 and remind the commission what representations were made at that point in time that were intended, we believe, to satisfy concerns associated with what the aesthetics of the quarry would look like upon closure. We believe that the representations made at that time were intended to satisfy guideline number 2, that the proposal would not adversely impact surrounding properties. We do understand that a commitment to a regrading plan that has more gentle slopes upon which grass and vegetation could grow is more costly. However, we believe that it is closer to the intention of what had been reached back in 2008 and what we think the community is interested in when they talk about, at this point in time, the carving of the rock wall. An alternative would be to bring that slope back to what it looked like before the quarry was there. So that is why we introduced some changes to condition number 2. Thank you.
Additionally, because we are recommending that would require changes to the final grading plan, we also, and this is not included in our written submission, but we recommend modification of the Planning Commission's condition number 1 to extend the 6-month deadline to submit a new site plan to 1 year. And that would be to align the deadline with a revised final closure grading plan and renaturalization plan. That's all. We're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chip Chase, do you have any questions or comments?
Cal Chip Chase, no questions, Chair.
Thank you. City and County.
Patricia Sundown, no questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Lee.
Thank you. For OPSD, what do you think of the petitioner's position that their plan presents a more stable solution for the slope?
I am not an engineer, so I cannot comment directly on the stability of the slope. However, certainly the state would want that slope to be stable and manage stormwater and manage erosion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. So now it's opportunity for a second round of public testimony based on new information. If you want to testify for a second time today, you should direct it to new information that has been put on the record since you testified the first time. So do we have anybody that wishes to testify at this time?
Double checking, was anyone interested? We have Dr. Keone Dudley interested in a second round of public testimony.
So Mr. Dudley, please come forward, and while you're doing that, I'll just remind you that you're still under oath, and once you're settled, you can proceed. Push the button that says talk. There you go. Oh, Mr. Dudley, want to start over? Start over.
Okay. Unfortunately, when the spokesman over here was talking about the quarry, I was not here. So I just caught the very end of it. Let me say, though, that he showed a picture of the back of the quarry from very far away, but it looked like, oh, you can't really see that very well. But if you were to go to Kamakana Ali'i or come back up the street to where Croc Center is, the view of that big wall is just terribly big and ugly. And we're asking that something be done to make it beautiful. You know, it also is said that that the quarry, people aren't going to be able to see it, but the quarry work will be over. The quarry will be empty. That could be a beautiful place for tourists to come and to look up and to see the carving on the wall. And it could be a big attraction, and it could do an awful lot to put you people down through history too, you know, as the creators of this thing. There's all kinds of ways to identify yourselves in doing such a thing. that will last for thousands of years. So it could be then something for tourists to see. And it could, and we want something beautiful. And I appreciate the fact that the people at the end down here were talking about our idea. This is the neighborhood board. This is the people of the area. I do want to say that the Grace Pacific has come to the neighborhood board, and we first of all discussed this with them. They seemed quite open to it. The second time they came back, they were unwilling to talk about it, and I don't know why that was. I just think they weren't prepared. But if we are given some kind of condition of approval that something has to be done there and it has to be worked with the neighborhood board, we need that, because we're not going to have the chance ever again to do this. I do want to say too, something was said about the board changes all the time and views will change. That really just isn't true. I've been on the board for 25 years. Other people can be too. I think that it's quite possible for the community to work with the Quarry folks to have something come up that is absolutely beautiful, that will honor the first people of these islands and will last for thousands of years. And I ask you, don't pass up this chance, please, to put that requirement in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Please stand by. Mr. Chip Chase, any questions?
Cal Chip Chase, no questions, Chair.
Thank you. City and County,
Patricia Sendao, no questions.
thank you. OPSD,
Allison Cotter, no questions. Thank you.
thank you. Commissioners, anything further?
Chair, I got a question.
Mr. Kahele,
So, Mr. Dundee, so the neighborhood board, they came up with a resolution establishing a permitted interaction group. I guess to meet with the petitioner or with Grace. So has there been any results in your meetings?
Say it again. Other what?
Your permitted interaction group that you included in your resolution that you passed at the neighborhood board 24?
Yes.
Has there any meetings that was established with your group to discuss about your painting or your carvings?
No. Everything has been done in the regular board meetings. So the interaction group, the permitted interaction group, it has not really ever had a separate meeting at all. No, nor have we met with Grace Pacific. I think when the chair wrote the resolution, he wanted to make sure that there was some body that would work with Grace Pacific on this, and that's why it was put in there.
Keone, just for clarification, the neighborhood board, Kapolei neighborhood board is not against the expansion or the extension. They just want to include in that a condition to do a painting or do a carving. Is that right? Is that?
Yes. People did come to the neighborhood board and did have real concerns. One party said that their house shakes all the time. Another party said that they can't take the noise at nighttime that we're going to anticipate coming and so forth. But basically, the answer to that was Grace Pacific really does work with the community quite well and will really try to work with the community, and I believe they will. Your question was...
My question basically is the neighborhood board 24, the Kapolei neighborhood board is not against the project or the extension.
No,
They just want to include that condition.
Right. We're just looking to see something beautiful left afterwards in 2047.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, anything further? Thank you, Mr. Dudley.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Was anyone else interested in one last testimony? Final call. I think we're good, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, last round for comment, and I would like to, let me encourage the parties to speak to this condition 2 issue again, because I'm confused by it, and I'm sure other people are as well, especially since I couldn't read it up on the screen and I couldn't follow your dialogue very well. So to the extent that you could attempt to clarify what the issue is, that would be very helpful.
Councilor Chase, I'll do my best, Chair, and I'll use the first part of my closing to do exactly that. The Planning Commission's proposed condition 2. So as drafted in the Planning Commission's proposed findings of fact, conclusions of law, decision, and order, we believe is correct. The only change that we would submit as necessary to that is a reference to the number 4 in terms of the visual analyses should be 5. So if the word 4 were changed to 5, the Planning Commission's condition 2 is entirely correct in our view. The OPSD's 2 substantive changes are restoring a berm to the wider footprint it would occupy under the 2008 approval, and to prohibit a grading plan, a final grading plan that allows benching and requires all slopes to be no greater than 75%. As Katia explained entirely accurately, those conditions related to a finding that dealt with visual impact. And so the slope, the absence of benching, and the berm were all related to anticipated visual impacts in 2008. Since then, we have looked at the engineering for the slope and the best approach for slope stability, for drainage, for access to the material that would be approved through this expansion, both in terms of time and the modified area. And we have concluded that allowing benching creates a more stable slope, is better for drainage, and provides better operational access to material for the quarry operations. We then looked at whether the bench,
When you say we, you meaning
Grace Pacific,
Grace Pacific,
through the consulting engineers, Bowers and Kubota, as well as its own operational experience. We then looked at whether that benching would result in an overall slope that is greater than 75%. The engineers concluded it does not. It results in a 58% overall slope, even though individual slopes may exceed 75%. Then we looked at whether there would be any anticipated visual impact from allowing benching or from that slope ratio. We concluded there is not. And Dr. Dudley referenced one vantage point being from the Kroc Center. That is actually the vantage point that I used in discussing this issue and in discussing the carving with the commission. So that is the vantage, and it's one of the vantages that all parties, OPSD, the city and county of Honolulu, and Grace Pacific agree is a relevant vantage point from the quarry. So we don't believe that there is any visual impact and that there's substantial both operational and environmental benefits from allowing the benching and from allowing slopes to exceed 75% as long as the overall slope ratio does not. The second point that OPSD made is the one I referenced with respect to the berm. That is a berm on the Kunia side known as the Kunia berm. The original, or the 2008 proposed mitigation had a wider berm than we proposed through our plan. That wider berm took into account a different quarry shape and alignment than we proposed here. It was also the same height as the berm that we propose here. And so, having changed the quarry operation and having retained the berm height, we believe that the narrower, not smaller in terms of height, but narrower berm still accomplishes the purpose of finding 40, protect the public from visual impacts upon closure, while recognizing the slightly modified site, recognizing that now we're leaving an equal amount of area undisturbed as we would propose to disturb through the modified site plan, and recognizes, as I showed on the screen, that even without actively vegetating that specific area, the permascape is able to take over when the area is undisturbed and leave it in a green, natural state. We looked at the visual impact through those same studies of the proposed berm, the narrower berm, and concluded, as we showed on the screen, that from those agreed vantage points, there is no greater impact visually for the community. And so we find ourselves, with respect to the berm, in a situation where narrowing the berm allows us to disturb less land area. We don't have to make a bigger berm in that area because of the revised grading plan, allows us to have 15 acres added roughly and 15 acres excluded essentially from operational areas without impacting the public in any way. To impose the wider berm then would serve no benefit that anyone has identified because the visual impact is the same. Would instead require us to disturb more area than we propose, because now we would have to grade and shape that area for the wider berm, and would impose an additional cost of somewhere between 3.5 and in excess of $5 million without any corresponding benefit. And for those reasons, we've respectfully pushed back against OPSD's proposed condition with respect to berming and asked the commission not to adopt that, but instead to adopt the Planning Commission's proposed condition 2 with that one exception, changing the word 4 to 5. Chair, did I do okay explaining the condition?
Yeah, good start. So I should conclude. Are you asking me to conclude? Or are you suggesting that I conclude from your remarks that what all of the we conclude, we decide, we evaluated is consistent with what the city and county is put forth as condition 2, subject to that one correction?
Yes, Chair. And if there are any further questions on condition 2, I'd be happy to address them now, or if you'd like, I can continue with my closing.
Continue.
Very good, Chair. The question of the rock face, Dr. Dudley testified again and explained, sincerely what his view and the view of the neighborhood board ought to be upon closure. And we certainly respect his views and the time that he has invested in this issue and his time to be here today. For the reasons that I explained earlier, including the material is unsuitable for the type of carving that he would envision, as well as the distance and the visibility of any carving of the magnitude that he would envision, we respectfully suggest that condition is not appropriate. Also, with respect to the process point that I mentioned earlier. Again, just touching again on the visual impact, Dr. Dudley referenced the Kroc Center. Again, that is an image that we provided. And as you can see from that study, it would be incredibly difficult to view meaningfully any carving or painting, even if the rock surface were suitable for it, which it is not. And so that condition would be, in effect, imposing on Grace something it can't do and that won't benefit anyone. And it may not be what the public, either in that area or in any area in city and county of Honolulu, want to see in 2047. Hopefully I won't still be doing this proceeding in 2047. And so
I
I would
know I
leave-
won't be here, but that's okay.
I would leave those decisions to
Others, yeah.
a future body if they were to change what has historically been required in the grading and closure plans. My last point on closure, Chair and members, would be to say that you know an applicant from the company it keeps. And the company we heard testify today in support of the application, including Dr. Dudley referencing Grace Pacific's commitment to working with the community, is good company. You know an applicant, an operator, a property owner from the actions it takes. And as you heard from some of the union representatives who testified, Grace Pacific is committed to its community, to its workers, to the area. And you know an applicant, an operator, a property owner from its reputation. And as you heard today, and as we've experienced in these proceedings, Grace's reputation as an operator, as a neighbor, is one of commitment, one of respect, one of access, one of responsibility. And for those reasons, and for the conditions that we've proposed as part of this application, we believe that the standards for a special use permit extension or amendment in this case have been met, and that it is appropriate to allow Grace to continue operating for an additional 15 years so it can access that material, reshape the quarry so it can access that material, to modify the operational hours as we've requested to be more efficient, to be more accessible, to be more available for nighttime operations, and to continue to allow concrete batching in the quarry pit. And so we'd ask the commission to agree with the Planning Commission and approve the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. City and County, any questions for the petitioner?
Patricia, excuse me, Patricia Sendao, no questions for petitioner.
Thank you. OPSD,
Allison Cato, no questions. Thank you.
thank you. Commissioners. Commissioner Lee,
For the petitioner, just to clarify, on condition 2, other than changing from 4 to 5, the other 2 items you mentioned, the slope and the benching and the width of the berm, you agree with the Department of Planning and Permitting or the Planning Commission's conditions or their take on it?
Cal Chip Chase. Yes, Commissioner, I do.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Anybody else?
Chair.
Commissioner Carr Smith.
Thank you. Mr. Chip Chase, I'm just trying to understand a little bit. I obviously am not overly familiar with quarry operations, but it seems to me like in a quarry you would extract and make your products and they would come in and out. And then when it's time to be POW, then you grade or do any fine tuning that you need to do to turn it back over to the community or whatever. So I get confused when you talk about the grading closure plan and the benches, and you say that the benches are helpful because you can access material. So I'm just a little, so with the benches, it's almost like as you're doing your operations, you're also at the same time planning for the closure grade? Okay.
Cal Chip Chase, that is correct.
Okay.
That is one, operationally, the most efficient way to proceed. It would be extraordinarily difficult to grade without, or to extract without regard to your final grading plan, and then attempt to meet it at the end. If you could even do that, it would be Herculean, I think would be the best way to say it. The other point I would make is that it is the most responsible. The final grading plan is intended to represent what the quarry walls and pit area will look like upon closure. We should be working toward that because that is the most stable, the most respectful of drainage, and the least impactful during the operational period.
Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome.
Anything further? So I have a general question, probably for Grace Pacific. And I'm not sure it's subject to this particular matter, but in 2047, this place is going to be closed. Let's just make that assumption. But yet there's still demand for aggregate in high quantity in the state. What's the future look like? Is it other new quarries, or are other quarries expanding? What's the game plan beyond 2047? I don't think it's importing aggregate from outside the state unless we have to. But is that the plan?
Cal Chip Chase, Scott, are you able to generally address Chair's question?
I think so. Scott Komatsu. Yes, definitely in 2047. Part of why we asked for the extension, we think that's what, based on the material we have there now, that's how long it'll how long we'll last into continuing to provide. To answer your question, there's multiple possibilities what we want to do with the property at the end. We have some options based on our permit. One of them definitely would be the most expensive. The biggest impact to the state of Hawaii and the economy is if we import. When 2008, around there, we had a big delay on getting our extension, so we actually imported, and it nearly tripled the cost to do business for what we do on the asphalt and the construction aggregate side of it. The other option is, of course, continuing the quarry. It's been going on since 1971. We're still really far from all the neighbors, and but that's just options that we think we might have in 2047.
Well, but the representation was that you would exhaust the aggregate at this particular location in 2047.
We would exhaust the aggregate in the permitted areas that we can extract and excavate. Like, for example, I think we have approximately 200 acres where we operate our quarry. The area that encompasses what Grace Pacific owns is about 550 acres, around there. So.
Okay, so this is a little different than what I thought. So based on the presentations, my takeaway and the evidence in the record was that once 2047 comes, there's no more aggregate to be acquired from this site.
Unfortunately, we don't know that right now. We
don't
have
know
to do studies and do additional borings.
Well, you've got 300 more acres to potentially be new quarry.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we need A-grade aggregate. A-grade aggregates is what's used in concrete and asphalt. So although there will be rock, if you don't have that high quality rock, it won't be useful as a quarry. So that's why right now we can't. It takes $500,000 to do that study. So we're not in the process of doing that yet. So right now our options are kind of open for what we're going to do in 2047.
But the possibility exists you'll come back to the city and county and the land use commission and ask for new acreage to be put into quarry. That's a potential option.
I want to say yes, that's one possibility.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm gonna ask, no more questions? No? Sure. You're still under oath.
Yeah, I'm still under oath. Scott Komatsu. And one of the things, I was born and raised, I've been working for Grace Pacific for 35 years now. So we love the community. We understand the issues with our natural limited resource. The quarry rock is a natural limited resource. So we're one of the very few companies that do recycling. We recycle concrete, we recycle hot mix asphalt, the millings from the road when we pave, and we make construction aggregates out of it. In the last 4 to 5 years, we had huge strides with the state of Hawaii where they finally put it in
They helped us out and they put it into the specs so we can use it in all state projects now. And because of that, it dramatically increases the longevity of the quarry. So, that's another one that, I might come here and say, I need another 5 more years, even without expanding yet. But recycling diverts waste from the landfills, and it also get much better carbon footprint, and of course expands the limited resource that we have in aggregates. Sorry about that. Thank you.
No, thank you. Okay, we'll go to the city and county, and I'd like you to also address and confirm the representations by the petitioner about this regarding condition 2.
Patricia Sandow. Again, the city and county Department of Planning and Permitting still respectfully recommends that the Land Use Commission adopt the Planning Commission's findings of fact, conclusions of law, and decision and order dated May 29th, 2024, with the conditions as approved by the Planning Commission. We'll break this down the same way petitioner did with respect to OPSD's proposed condition 2. And we'll start with the typographical issues. I'll describe it. We concur that changing the number of lines of sight from 4 to 5 more accurately represents the findings of fact, and have no issue with naming the lines of sight specifically by name as OPSD did. On the substantive conditions, we recommend the Planning Commission's condition number 2 as they proposed it, because they made extensive findings and are more closely aligns with the 2008 DNO, and as a mitigation to the various potential impacts from the project for these 4 proposed amendments to the special use permit. And I'm available for any questions from the commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chip Chase, anything?
Cal Chip Chase, Chair, no questions.
Ms. Kato?
Allison Kato, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners? Thank you very much. Ms. Kato?
Thank you.
Allison Kato. I just wanted to state it, I guess, a little more simply what the difference is for the commissioners. Basically, in 2008, the final closure grading plan proposed a gradual vegetated slope with a wide berm, presumably to address, we assume, to address community concerns regarding aesthetics. And in connection with this application, petitioner has a revised closure grading plan that narrows the berm and introduces benches, which would have vertical slopes between the benches. So our recommended revisions to condition 2 are based on this. Petitioner's position is based more on other considerations such as cost. So that's the basic difference. And, you know, so we still recommend our proposed revisions to condition 2, but the decision is up to the commissioner's discretion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chase?
Cal Chip Chase, no questions, Chair.
City and County?
Patricia Sandow, no questions.
Thank you, Commissioners. So, Mr. Chip Chase, she said that the only reason you didn't, that you went to the benching as opposed to the gradual slope was cost, but I heard that there was a very different reason additionally, and that was, maybe Scott can address it. It had to do with how you operate, that the benching facilitates a more efficient operation. Is that correct?
That is correct, and Scott can confirm that. And Scott was with me when we spoke to the engineers yesterday, so perhaps you can address slope stability and drainage as well. And if we need to call the engineer up, we can do that too.
Yeah, what I'm looking for is non-cost reasons why the alternative that you're proposing now, as opposed to what was interpreted in 2008, why it makes sense.
Understood, Chair.
Yeah, Scott Komatsu. So
she kind of said it herself where we cannot, we're not just mining. We have to create access, we create benches, and our goal is to achieve our final grading plan at the end of 2047. To do so is to do it in, just maximum 75% slope would make the operation extremely inefficient. But what Cal mentioned also is that these benches, when you have sloping, just continuous slopes, water hits it, it picks up speed, and it just creates erosion, and it's not as, back in the day, we didn't think about stormwater that much. So versus a bench, and these benches are wide, the water hits it, it has time to percolate, and it's a much more efficient method of drainage for, even at the end in 2047. Did I miss something? Slope stability? Oh, yeah, slope stability, the rock that we have there, Bowers and Kubota probably can be better to explain it, but it's definitely not an issue to have these, I mean, it's more sturdy, I guess you can say, to have these bench faces than to have just the slopes, and mainly because, like I said, of rain, big rain events or erosion.
So a little bit different question. So this bench face structure that you're talking about, is that the same face that Mr. Dudley is talking about with a carving?
Benches is just essentially access areas that where we can drill and blast and create new materials, feed material.
Into the microphone.
I'm sorry, that creates feed material. So I'm sorry, what was your question again on that?
Are we talking about, you guys are both using the word face.
Yeah.
You're using it to describe it's not a uniform slope, it's a benched, staggered slope. And Mr. Dudley's talking about a face to put a carving. Are we talking about the same face?
Yeah, so I understand it can be extremely difficult to see it from far away, but our rock face now is not just one tall face like you guys see at Manoa parking structure. Like that's one huge, ours is step down to different benches, and that's part of also it's a big safety issue. Mines, OSHA and MSHA is what regulates Grace Pacific's quarry, and that's like literally OSHA on steroids. Their level of what we gotta do and how we do things is and they don't come when there's accidents. They come inspect us 3, 4, 5 times a year, and part of these benches and stuff, it's required to mine safely.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lee.
Mr. Komatsu, can you tell us how many benches would be on the face and about how wide they might be?
You mean at the end of the?
Right, at closure.
I did not study the final closure grading plan, so I don't have the answer to that. Scott, am I right that the benches are about, this is CalChip Chase, am I right the benches are about 15 feet? Yes, correct. 15 feet wide, so we can at least answer that. I don't know, Commissioner, the answer to the question, how many benches would be in the final grading plan. We can take a moment and try to find that out if you'd like.
No, that's okay. Or do you want them to pursue it?
Oh, I think Scott got an answer. Our president mentioned that it could be like 4 to 5 benches, from top to bottom. Yeah. It does change, the highest point in our quarry is like 800 feet and it goes down to like 300-400 feet. Yeah.
So just to be clear, when you use the word final or like final closing plan or final landscape plan, that's with the assumption you're actually going to close in 2047. But if you explore options and decide to come back for more, you're not going to close. It's not going to be final in 2047. Is that correct?
I'll field that, Chair. CalChip Chase. So as I mentioned in my study or in my presentation, the current best study we have is that's when we exhaust the material. If through recycling efforts or through other studies, there's more material that is available to meet Oahu's needs, then we would need to come back through the same process and we would develop a new final closure plan based on
Okay.
any revised quarry operations plan that we would propose.
Sure.
Mr. Oʻahu?
Yeah, just a comment on the benching. I think that will be, for myself, that will be on safety standard that I think should be included in BMPs if that's the case. It should be, I think the benching is for safety for the workers, for runoff, for all of those matters, but, you know, to me, it should be placed in best managed practices as part of, condition, not a condition, but part of the safety guidelines that we see all the times that we do with BMPs, right? I think this, and again, it's not, I don't think the cost is not, for me, it's not a cost issue. It's a safety standard. And as you see our own members or the members working, that's a safety platform that they got. So I would not want to risk health and safety over anything else. And I think the benchmarks brings that safety part to our own people. So thank you for that. I think it should be part of the BMPs for clarity, if possible. Not at this time, but just for use in the future.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Okay, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. We'll come back in 5 minutes and go into deliberations. So return at 11:22. Okay, 11:27, we're back on the record. So we will commence with deliberations on this matter. These are public deliberations. Just a quick reminder. This application is to amend conditions of approval for the Makakilo Quarry to extend the life to 2047, reshape the area, expand the operating hours, and to make clarity that the ready-mix concrete permit may operate on site. There's also some question about condition number 2 or the amendment of that condition number 2, and it's been stipulated between the county and the petitioner of the form of that condition, but there's also been stated by the state that they disagree with that, and they ask us to change it back to what existed in 2008 or something to that effect. So commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Chair, I've listened to all of the testimony. I've read most of the testimony that was either in writing or was submitted. I've heard Mr. Dudley, that sits on the neighborhood board's been there for 25, 26 years. He's an icon there. I've sat on many of the neighborhood board meetings. I basically, I'm very interested in what the statements that the petitioner have stated, Scott, and I am kind of like interested in the operation of the ready-mix concrete plant that they're including in their permit. With the city's sustainability plan that I believe they're looking at 27 to 34% of Honolulu's population living on the west side of the island. I believe it'd be beneficial to us that live on the west side of the island and to the city with all of the homes and all of the construction that they're looking at building there on the west side of the island and in the Kapolei Everplains. I believe with the support of our current Representative Kalani Souza, who's also inquired about conditions regarding the emergency access, which the company has currently agreed on. I'm going to make a motion that we accept the petitioner's application.
We approve it.
We approve it.
is your motion to approve it as conditioned with, from the planning commission? I mean, relative to condition number 2?
Well, if condition number 2 is gonna be required, and if they're gonna be using the old condition, I don't see a problem with, I actually don't see a problem with that.
I'm a little confused. So the petitioner has stated they are in agreement with the conclusion of the city and county planning commission for the language of condition 2 and
Yes.
vice versa.
Yes, that would include
Is that the
condition
one-
number 2.
Is that the one you're agree?
Yes, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay. Do I have a second to that motion? Commissioner Lee?
Sure, I just wanted to clarify. So the motion is to approve the petitioner's application to amend on the conditions of approval in accordance with the Honolulu Planning Commission and correcting the
4 to 5.
4 to 5 public sight lines. Is that your motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Kayal?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I will second that
Commissioner
motion.
Lee.
So the motion is moved by Commissioner Kahele and seconded by Commissioner Lee. So Commissioner Kahele, I think you kind of spoke in favor of your motion before you actually made it, but do you have any additional commentary you'd like to make?
Well, I'm only assuming with all the testimony that came out, that Great Pacific has been a good neighbor. I believe with all the construction projects that's coming out, with all of the employment opportunities, with all of the employees that they currently are employed there at Grace Pacific, it's not only going to be economically beneficial to the state, but for all of the monies that they're going to be generating in revenues for the city and for the state in taxes, and of course, the 200 plus operators, engineers that's currently working there. I think it's going to be beneficial to labor, beneficial to the state, and it's going to be beneficial to the community.
Thank you. Commissioner Lee, would you like to speak to your second?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm going to support this because although I understand what OPSD is saying, if I go by the lovely slide on page 26, things look actually much better than they are currently. And benching is an important safety thing for construction. And absent any other reasoning, except from the engineers and their assertion that it's more stable and safer, I have to go along with that. And as far as the community on the west side, point taken about how everything is done on that side that's detrimental and supports the rest of the island. But Waimanalo Gulch will close. PVT land is not going to get their extension right now. And something like that, which is a public good, what you're looking for, I think that should be done with the cost and the resources of the city and county of Honolulu to provide something that will benefit the community, and it shouldn't be imposed on a private business to do something like that. Not to say it's not worthy, but I think it's more appropriate for the legislators and the councilmen to decide and to fund that for the rest of the community. And so I will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, anybody else want to speak to the motion? Commissioner Carr-Smith?
Thank you, Chair. I'll be supporting the motion. I have great respect for OPSD's wishes for the land to be returned to the way it was found. And hopefully that will be taken into consideration when it reaches that stage. But I also feel like the petitioner's intentions, both in terms of safety and the finished product, are sincere, and it's a long time from now. So I support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Yamani.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll also be supporting the motion. I want to thank the petitioners. I thought your presentation was very well organized and appreciated, made it a lot easier for me to understand. Also want to resonate with Commissioner Kahele, listening to his, he's here. You know, I'm from Kauai, so, but I need to rely on the Oʻahu people to tell me what they're hearing and what they're seeing. So for those reasons, I'll be supporting this motion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? So the chair will also support the motion. I want to commend Grace Pacific for being a good industrial partner of the community, doing great work with a consciousness of what it means to be a good neighbor. It's an industrial enterprise. It's a critical and needed industrial enterprise. I still hate the thought of having to import aggregate from 3,000 miles away to meet our growing needs. I also had a takeaway, maybe it was accurate, maybe mistaken, but I think there's been a lot of engineering going on in the last several years. I heard the reference to the firm Bowers and Kubota. I've worked with them previously and on many occasions. They do good work. I trust them. So I think things are being done properly and well, and I think it's a very reasonable ask to modify with as stated. And I agree with I am respectful of the intent of where PSD is coming from on condition number 2. You're looking down the road and you're looking at what it's going to look like if and when, and you don't want it to look like an industrial mess. You want it to look good. And at the same time, I think that there has been care put into that consideration. Again, I referenced the engineering that's been done. And I also, if you agree with Commissioner Oʻahu, if you stack up the important criteria, you always put safety number 1. If you're telling me that safety's a major consideration for the approach you're taking with the benching, then that sells it for me. So thank you for that. So commissioners, last round, any comment? If not,
I got one more.
okay,
I got
Commissioner
one more
Kahele.
statement.
You're doing a Columbo on me. All right.
It's a request, Scott. Maybe in the future you can possibly sit with Mr. Dudley and some other members of Kapolei Neighborhood Board and see what you guys can do to try to maybe look at beautifying the place besides doing a carving. I don't know, maybe trees would do. I don't know. Mr. Dudley probably got 1,000 ideas. But anyway, just a request. Thank you.
Chair, if you'll indulge me, Cal Chip Chase. So Commissioner, I had an opportunity to sit with Dr. Dudley on the recess, and I actually committed Scott to doing that, to sitting down with Dr. Dudley. He didn't know that until now, but we certainly understand the request.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, please follow through with that. That's a great suggestion, Commissioner Kahele. Mr. Orendecker, please take a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion is to approve the petitioner's application to amend with the conditions as proposed by the Planning Commission, with the exception of a change from 4 to 5 in condition 2. Commissioner Kahele. Commissioner Lee.
Aye.
Commissioner Miyasato.
Aye.
Commissioner Oʻahu.
Aye.
Commissioner Yamane.
Aye.
Commissioner Carr-Smith.
Aye.
Commissioner Hayashida has recused himself, and Commissioner Kamakea Oʻahu is excused. Chair Giovanni.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. And thanks to the parties for your work. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. Appreciate it very much.
So that concludes our scheduled elements of our meeting. Commissioners, do you have any further business you want to bring up? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.